tear, it falls and hits the ground. A tree, it falls without a sound. A bird, it calls and sends you home. A man, he sits in the cold all alone.
Thank you. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much for joining me and everyone. Please, just can we sort of go into a bit of your journey and sort of how you
Yeah,
got into this space, and why you do what you
absolutely. Yeah, so I'm a 39-year-old Canadian, Italian born woman. That's
do.
irrelevant, but it's kind of cool. It's a long
Yeah.
story, but we'll leave that story for another day. Either way, I'm 39 years old and I've always desired and wanted to be a mom. And lo and behold, as my life would have it, my life partner has not manifested yet. Yet is the key word. So in my mid 30s, I kind of woke up one night in like a sweat and a panic and like, oh my gosh, my biological clock is ticking. Am I ever going to have a family or have a family in the way that I had always desired with a partner and to have that kind of nuclear family? So at that time, I was already in the health and wellness space. I actually went to school, did my undergrad for psych, I did my postgrad in HR. I worked in corporate HR for most of my 20s. And then something was pulling me. I was like, this is not the life for me. So I ended up taking a yoga class. That yoga class in my mid to late 20s was literally the catalyst that like changed the direction of my whole entire life. And from there, I learned about an Eastern philosophy of medicine called Ayurveda. From there, I learned about holistic nutrition. And then I decided to go back to school to become a holistic nutritionist. I left the corporate world. And for the first half of my 30s, I was a personal trainer, yoga instructor, and nutritionist. And the reason why I share this backstory is because by the time I was in my mid 30s and had this kind of like revelation awakening or this panic moment of like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Um, I was already a practitioner in the health and wellness space. So I had lots of knowledge about women's health, the body, how it worked, hormones, all of it. And I thought to myself, well, you know what? Like, I'm just going to do everything that I can to optimize my fertility naturally with my healthy living, my healthy lifestyle, healthy nutrition, because, having children for me is probably going to happen later in life. And so when I had that moment, I started diving into the research and I thought, well, this is going to be easy. I'm just going to make a few tweaks and changes, and I'll be well on my way. But as I started diving into the research, that was my light bulb moment of like, holy crap, there's so many women who are struggling with this. And there is so much contradicting information out there. And I was like, if I'm a health professional in this space already and I'm overwhelmed and confused, you can only understand what so many other women are going through. So I don't necessarily have my own kind of infertility journey or story per se myself, but my journey into this space comes from my own challenge of, you know, I guess manifesting that family that I've deeply desired. And I thought maybe get a sperm donor, be a single mom by choice. There are so many things that went through my head. I've made a lot of different decisions, changed my mind a lot of times. And I've literally finally landed at like, I'm just accepting what's in front of me. And I'm just going to let the universe just show me how it's all going to unfold. And so in my mid 30s, when I had this kind of realization and did all this digging, that's when I had that light bulb moment that I was like, this is what I want to focus on. This is what I want my business to focus on. And that's when I decided to niche in the fertility space and now have been doing this since I was 35, helping women and couples optimize their fertility through what's called the fertility awareness method and through like my holistic principles, one of the main ones being holistic nutrition, to ultimately help them get pregnant and stay pregnant so that they can fulfill their desire of becoming a mom and a parent. So that's kind of like in a bit of a nutshell how I kind of came into this space.
Yeah, I love what you were saying about like if you were confused, then if you were like finding it overwhelming and like what, then yes. And we are, oh my gosh, the amount of information and I mean, even down to the language used, because some of the
Oh,
language like
yeah.
what? It's a what?
There's so many acronyms.
Yeah.
so many acronyms, and you're just like, what does this stand for? It's like a whole new language.
Yeah, you've got to like have your own like dictionary type for like all the acronym things and what they mean and how does that even relate to you. And yeah, and there's just so much that, I mean, I've just learned a lot just through doing this event and talking to so many women about like hormones and about your cycles and then about nutrition, like all these different things that we almost take for granted. We're just like, oh well, I'm just going to
Mhm.
eat food, you know. But there's like a whole thing to it, and a way to optimize health and wellness. So I love that you started off with yoga. So many women have that moment as well, like with yoga,
Yes.
and then they're just like, oh my gosh, just taking that moment to slow down. And it's amazing how it's not like keep going that snaps us out. It's slowing down and taking a moment and being with ourselves, which is terrifying for most people, that
Yes.
actually wakes us up to what's going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing I've always, one thing I wanted to mention about just women and us understanding our bodies. It's not, this has always been like a deep passion of mine anyways. It's just like empowering and educating women about their hormones and their health, because we live in more of a patriarchal world where the women's menstrual cycle wasn't even studied until more recently, right? And so our bodies operate on a cyclical basis in such a different way than our male counterparts. And what nourishes our bodies, what nourishes our physical and mental and emotional well being is so different from what our male counterpart is. And once a woman can really be self aware, understand her body, and use her menstrual cycle as her fifth vital sign to understand what is serving her in her life and what is not, you literally take your whole health and life to the next level. So, like, that coupled with the fertility component for me makes me just like so excited to be able to share this knowledge with my clients, with my community. I've started a podcast. Like I just want to educate as many women as possible to empower them with the tools that they need to. I mean, really, we're here talking about fertility, but what I like to say really is that your your fertility is just an extension of your health. So, right, as women, like we're designed to procreate. As men are too. We're both designed to procreate as a human species. This is how we evolve. And so, um, if we can just learn how to optimize our health, at the end of the day, we optimize our fertility. So that's those are just two pieces that I wanted to add.
Yeah, and it seems to be the case because whenever I have talked to someone who's like a doctor or someone who works in like who's like an embryologist, I say, what can we do to enhance our fertility, to help our fertility, and that they just say the basic health things like healthy eating,
Exactly.
healthy living, like exercise, lifestyle. Like I said, you really just don't think about it because at school you're given the food pyramid, and I mean I mean, we should go into that as well. Like, how do you feel about the food pyramid? Because I always love to ask that of health professionals because I always get very interesting answers. So, how do you feel about the food pyramid?
I know, you know what? I don't even remember what the food pyramid is. It's been so long since, I mean, I know what the food
Bread,
pyramid is, but like to actually remember
yeah,
what
yeah, yeah.
the it's
So,
like grains at the bottom, and then
yes, yes,
which is
grains,
obviously
bread, like all your like heavy
yes.
carb things, like cereal. How is cereal on that food pyramid? I don't know because I know that
I
cereal is just terrible for you. Um,
Right? It's
but it's
that is
out
outdated. That is old. That needs to be thrown in the garbage.
there. There you go. There you go, people. You heard it here first. Throw it in the garbage. Don't use it. But they're still spouting the same thing, the food pyramid, and it's just like I don't
Yeah.
understand how this is outdated, and they're still doing it for like pregnant women and going, yes, this is for optimal health for your baby, and it's like I don't think eating
Yeah.
bread, white bread, And
No, it's not ideal. Unfortunately, I think it takes a little bit of a longer time for the conventional system to pick up on these things and actually make those changes. Because to think about the changes that they have to make in order to get that policy changed
oh yeah.
is like, that's a long time. But I will say, with social media and podcasts and the technological world that we live in now, I mean, so many people have so much incredible access
Mm.
to so many people who are completely debunking all of that and giving us much more sound advice, including like summits like this one.
Yeah, yeah. My favorite was always, I always got confused as a kid, like the top of the pyramid is like all the sweet treats and like things, chocolates and lollies, and I always thought, like, how is it, this is a health food pyramid? I
Yeah, we've got to remodel that pyramid. Maybe we don't even make a pyramid. Maybe we just have to make a great big plate and then figure out how to divide it and say, this is what you need to eat for every meal on your plate. And then that way it's a little bit more easy to recognize.
well, I know the paleo kind of movement have the plate where they divide up the plate.
Hmm.
I think a couple of others do as well, but yeah, I think we need that as a, this is health, this plate.
Yes.
But yeah,
Yes.
because I mean, let's face it, health does not come from a packet, which is
No,
inconvenient, but true.
but true. And I think, once we start to, if you're not trained or you're not given the resources or tools or shown by a parental figure on how to model this properly, then of course unless you start doing the digging and the research and make it your priority to really look into how to do this for yourself, it can be challenging. I mean, I was blessed to grow up with a mom who literally cooked everything from scratch for us. Like, she would, I mean, there was five of us kids. She was a stay-at-home mom, but there was a lot of us, and she was busy all the time. But she would like literally put like post-it notes saying like what was for dinner on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because every 5 seconds, Mom, what's for dinner? Mom, what's for dinner? And so I was grown up with this amazing model of a mother who, I think, maybe, which is why I'm so in love with food and nutrition and love teaching people about healthy eating. But like, to me, it comes second nature because I've literally been modeled this and taught this growing up. But I know a lot of people don't have that privilege. So, but there's so much resources and information out there, and it doesn't have to be very hard. You don't have to slave in the kitchen for hours on end every day. There's a lot of ways to be strategic about your nutrition, meal planning, getting the easy, right recipes, and it tastes good. You feel good. Like, there's only benefits to all of this as opposed to negatives.
Yeah. Well, let's think about some sort of scenarios, because we have a lot of women in the sort of IVF world and
Mhm.
going through these fertility treatments. And we also have women who are just trying to go naturally as well. Is there a difference between the advice that you would give to someone who's going through fertility treatments and someone who's trying to conceive naturally, or is it pretty much universal?
It's pretty universal. The only individualistic piece or component is that the individual has to understand what food sensitivities or intolerances they might have, which is then going to dictate how differently they're going to be consuming certain foods. Now, also, if somebody needs to lose 50 pounds or somebody needs to gain 15 pounds, I've had multiple different clients where people have different health goals based on where they are starting at with their health. I remember I had a client who was going through IVF, and she had 2 years. She was diagnosed with unexplained infertility. 2 years of trying IVF. I forget exactly how many rounds she went through. She was then diagnosed with OHSS, the hyperstimulation of the ovaries. It was like, it really did a number on her body. She was 39 years old. She found me, and I was like, please give me 3 months. Just give me 3 months. And especially at that age, they're like, I don't have 3 months, Nora, to give you. And I'm like, yes, you do. Just give me these 3 months, because we will be able to optimize your health, detox your body, clean you out. She needed to gain weight, for instance. This is an example of where she actually needed to put weight on. And so 3 months, we put her through a protocol that was specific for her. And then she did go back to another fertility treatment, and it was successful. So, generally speaking, the principles for optimizing fertility are the same, but the difference is really going to be where for the individual, what, some people have pre-existing health conditions that has to be factored in, and I wouldn't be able to share what that would be until I actually had, the person's case laid out in front of me. But I'd be happy to definitely talk about all of the basic, like the general fertility boosting things that we can do.
Yeah, well, I mean, just you talking about the lady who came in and you said just 3 months, and I have heard something about like a 90-day thing, and how that 90 days can make a really big difference to just resetting your body. Can you talk into that at all? Because
Yeah.
I've been like hearing about it, but I've had no one to talk to about it yet.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're hearing the 3 months usually because they say it, but so we're born with our eggs. We all know we're born with our eggs. And then once we start menstruating, we start losing those eggs with every menstrual period. Now we're born with tons and thousands upon thousands and hundred thousands of eggs. So we've got lots. And so those eggs are in what's called a primordial state, right? So they're like just very tiny, not ready for maturation, just kind of hanging out there dormant, waiting to be recruited for a cycle so that one could potentially ovulate, to potentially fertilize, to potentially have a baby. And so the general research shows that it takes 90 days for that primordial egg to start maturing and developing before it reaches its most mature state where it then ovulates. So that's where you're hearing the 90 days. It takes 90 days for that egg to start like getting going. It's, starts to mature really. But there is more research that now shows that the maturation or the recruitment of this primordial egg actually starts 7 to 8 months prior. So this is why we say like, I would love in my ideal deal world, I mean, we're always preparing for pregnancy just by being healthy every day, right? Like, as I said, our optimal health is our most fertile self. But if you're really focusing on optimizing your body for pregnancy, that preconception phase and stage, I would love a client to start really focusing in on this at least 12 months prior to conceiving. So within that year mark of prior to conceiving is when I would say if you're drinking a lot of alcohol, if you're smoking a little bit of stuff, really start to cut that stuff out. Think about starting to take a prenatal supplement, just all these little things that you would do once you think, hey, I want to get pregnant. Actually start that 12 months prior. So that's where you're hearing the 90 days thing. But in addition to the primordial egg being recruited, let's also just think for a moment about the human body. The human body's cells are always overturning and changing, right? Like we're like a new person every 7 years. What's that saying, right? Like there's a saying there. You're like a new person every 7 years, right? Our cells are always changing and overturning. Now, depending on what organ is in our body, like the cells in our digestive tract and our small intestines overturn every 4 days. The cells in our liver, I think it takes about 90 days for the cells in our liver to overturn and to have like a fully cleaned liver. The same thing with our lungs. Have you heard like if somebody stops smoking within 8 months, it's like they have a brand new pair of lungs again, right? Our body is always healing, repairing, rejuvenating, and cleaning itself. So if you're giving yourself a window of time to just say, okay, like I'm going to be very targeted and focused on my health for, 90 days is usually something that is not very intimidating to a lot of people. And like, this is something I could do. So it's a good place to get started. And then, once you start implementing and doing it, you also see how much better you feel. And then eventually they become habits. And this is just how you end up living for hopefully, above and beyond. But that's where there's a couple components where that 90-day thing comes in. But a lot of the times it comes from the egg recruiting.
Yeah. And you're right. It's a lot more attainable than like a year or your whole life. This is your lifestyle now. That freaks
Exactly.
everyone out. Yeah.
Totally.
90
Yeah.
days.
I would love to share too that, as a holistic nutritionist myself and somebody who prides herself in being very healthy and Like, don't get me wrong, like that it is not about being perfect. I don't expect anybody to be perfect. And whoever is listening, please don't expect for perfection. Really think about balance, about like that 80-20 rule. And, a glass of wine and eating your favorite ice cream and having your favorite pizza and, really indulging in the foods that you love that might be quote unquote known as, bad or not optimal for fertility is totally fine. We need to be balanced human beings, but on the overall, it's important to make those healthy choices because your body is going to thank you, your baby is going to thank you, your grandbabies are going to thank you, all because of this concept of what's called epigenetics. Have you heard of epigenetics?
A little bit, yeah, but not too much.
Yeah, the concept of epigenetics in a very short sentence essentially just means above the gene. And so, what research is showing now is that 5% of disease is actually genetic in nature. Only 5. 95% of disease and health conditions really happen from the environment. So, if we can, we will build and create healthier generations who will be healthier and less sick when we put ourselves in an environment of more health, which includes the healthy foods that we're eating. Because when a woman is actually born with, I almost want to pull it up. When a woman is carrying her baby in her belly, she's actually carrying her grandbabies in her belly. Do you know this?
Yeah, my mum
And you
keeps
see
saying
that
that.
image.
She's like,
Yes.
oh, I just keep thinking how, like, when I was pregnant with you, I was also pregnant with all your children. And I'm like, okay.
It's true. It's true. So, right, like the genetic expression is it doesn't just happen when the baby is born. Like it's all coming. We're passing on a lot of our health problems through our genetics, and our health will be dictated mainly by our environment. And what is in that environment, the nutrition is going to be either your poison or your medicine. And so that's where the food component comes in.
Yeah. Yeah, I see a lot of posts, let your food be your medicine. And I really do resonate with that because I've seen a lot of health conditions and things, and I've seen people actually turn their life completely around 180 just from diet change. And it really is quite amazing when you see something like that, and because you don't consider it a lot of the time, even though it's like in your face, like we've got packeted foods, chocolate and all these like just full of sugar, sugary goodness,
Yeah.
things. Um, and we have seen a increase in body weight and an increase in health conditions in the last, 50 odd years, as we've had more and more of this, fast food, packeted food, and all that. I spoke to a lady the other day about nutrition as well, and we were saying about the beach pic from like the 70s where they're all skinny and like good looking, and then a picture of now where we've got like overweight and like unhealthy, and
Yes.
they still might be beautiful people, but they're like they've got so much extra that they're carrying, and their body's not dealing with that extra weight.
Exactly. And I think that is from a combination from a lot of one of the big components of that of being the food. We're now all about like fast, convenient, easy, and this is just how like the industry has kind of moved forward and modernized really in a way since the war, right? During the war, it was all about like we need to preserve, we need to make sure that we package all these foods, and then from there it grew to what it is now. Fast food only came out, I can't even remember, I watched a whole documentary on McDonald's, but fast food's only been out for what is it, like 50, 60 years. It hasn't been that long. But like you said, from there we're definitely seeing a rise, but we're not it's because of the food, the poor food choices that we're making, but also all of like the chemicals and the toxins that's in our food, which is compromising our gut. And it's a whole cascade. It's a whole cascade. So, yeah, absolutely. Food is medicine or poison and can be looked at that way
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
I did some digging into like the things that are in our food and what they put in there. And a lot of people go, "Oh, well, if it wasn't safe, then they wouldn't have it on the shelf. You know, FDA wouldn't approve it. And it's like, well,
No,
that's not 100% true, because we're still
that's
working
not.
things out. And sometimes they put things in food and they
Exactly.
go, it's okay now. But then, you know, later on they realize, oh, actually, it's not. It's like sugar. Sugar was like a weight loss thing. It's amazing for you. Eat it and you won't be hungry. And but we all know you get the munchies. Like when you start eating sugar, you're like, oh, I want more. I want more chocolate. I want more this. I want more that. And you can go for a tub of ice cream and be like, oh, that was full. So
Just empty calories. It's like cigarettes too. Remember cigarettes were used, like they were promoting smoking cigarettes. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And so many,
absolutely.
but,
It's
you know, people don't think of that. They don't think, oh, yeah, I remember when they promoted this or they promoted that and they had doctors saying how amazing it was. You know, people don't think of that. They just think, oh, well, no, but they wouldn't do that now. We're not any more advanced in terms of that. Like we still put things out there and some of them are really bad for us. And that doesn't get found out until later. So I'm so glad there's people like you who are actually looking out for women and helping people get some health because this is something we need right now. So when a client comes to you first off and they're just like, I don't have time. I don't have time to cook. I don't have time to do all this stuff. You know, what do you say to them to sort of get them in the right mindset?
Yeah. Well, when clients come to me, they're pretty desperate at that point because they've tried for a long time. So they're ready. They're ready to make the changes. But I will say, when somebody doesn't have time, I mean, we've got to make the time. We have to figure out how to make the time, right? Like, what is it? Your Albert Einstein said, you can't change the problem with the same consciousness that started it, something like that, or something along those lines, where you've really, if you're struggling or you're dealing with a health challenge or you're struggling with some fertility issues, then we've got to look at the environment and say, okay, like I've got to change, something's got to give. I got to change something here if I want to see a different result. Always, like, you've got to change something in order to see a different result. So first we've got to get our mindset in the right place. Once the mindset comes into the right place, really it's all about starting with small, simple steps. There could be 100 things that you can start changing, but that can be overwhelming. And again, everybody's busy, and we've all got lots of things to do, and you're probably also set in your ways with your routine and how you do things. But I always say just start with one simple step at a time. And I'll give you a few of my top tips that I always tell people. If there's anything that you're going to change, let's focus on these three things. So we'll start with the first one. The first one, a lot of this is going to sound pretty simple, but once you start making those changes, it really makes a world of a difference. And the first one really is just hydration. We'd be surprised at how many people are chronically dehydrated, not getting enough fluids throughout the day. And this could have a whole cascade of effects, negative effects in the body. The first and foremost one is our bowel movements. It is so important to have 2 to 3 healthy bowel movements a day, right? Our bowel movements are composed of water, fiber, toxins, and bacteria. We are taking in toxins every day. It's just the world that we live in, but we have a beautiful body and an immune system and detoxification organs to clean ourselves out. That's why we were made this way. And so our body knows how to get rid of those toxins. But if we are not hydrated, we are not going to be pooping every day, right? We're going to be constipated. Those 4 components of bowel movements, one of them is water. We have to have enough water to help flush it through us through the bowel movements. We need to have enough water to flush the toxins out through our kidneys. So urinating every single day. And we need to have enough water to help us digest and assimilate our food. So just being hydrated can make a big difference in your overall health. And so what I say, especially with the hydration piece, is one of the best ways to really understand, well, how much water do I actually need? This answer is variable depending on what part of the world you live in, how active you are during the day, a lot of these variables. On a general note, it's said about, okay, I don't know if we have the same metrics, but I'm just going to use liters and pounds because that's what I use here in Canada. But Yeah, so it's 1 liter for every 50 pounds of body weight. So if you're 150 pounds, you should be drinking around 3 liters of water a day. So find yourself a reusable, not plastic BPA free, because even BPA free plastic has BPA in it. Um, find yourself a good kind of stainless steel Nalgene water bottle that gives you, whether it's 750 mils or it's 1 liter, and commit yourself to drinking X amount of those water bottles a day. Start with that. That's one thing you can do. I promise it will make a big difference in your health. Do you drink water? Lots of water? Is that a challenge for you?
It's a challenge, but I actually have a kidney problem, which I've known
Mm.
about for a long time, and the doctor very early on told me I need to drink, double the amount that's normal. So they were telling me to drink like
Wow.
more than 2 liters a day. They were like, you need to drink like three. And
Hmm.
I'm like I was under 50 kilos at that point, and I'm only above right now because I'm pregnant. So for me, yeah, it's really hard to drink water. I know it's important, and I know I need to do it to even more so to flush out my kidneys because I've got scarring on them and all this from reflux when I was a kid.
Oh.
But it is hard. But I think it's one of those things like sometimes you self-sabotage, like if you're told something's good for you, like sometimes it's harder to do it. And like when you're told you have to do it, it's like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a mind. Everything comes back to the mind games, right?
yeah, and it's like it doesn't even taste good. But I've changed a lot since having my kids because they're like, I love water. Water's amazing. And they just drink it like gallons of it just all the time. And I'm just like, wow, I wish that I had your, taste buds for water. I just don't like it. But saying that, I have had people tell me like put a tiny drop of juice in there just to take the edge off, put a little bit of lemon, lime,
Mm.
whatever it is, just to kind of get you drinking it. And sometimes that does actually help. Just putting a little bit of something in there. It's not as good, obviously, but it's better than not drinking the liquids. So
Exactly, exactly. Or find yourself a nice hydrator, like an electrolyte hydrator powder that you like, and you can put that in there, and it'll flavor it a little bit, and then you'll be hydrating even more as well. So there's some great tips too. I was going to say add a little bit of lemon, but I know some people just don't like water. Like I love water. I can drink water all the time. That's my preferred choice of liquid versus juice or almond milk or something. But yeah, hydration is a big one. So take a moment, whoever's listening, and do the computations in your head. 1 liter for every 50 pounds of body weight. If you need to figure out what the conversions are, just do a quick Google search, depending on where you live. But that figure, see how many, and then do a little audit and see, am I actually getting this much? So obviously, if it's summertime and you're out and you're exercising and sweating, you'll probably need to be a little bit more hydrated. But your body will tell you if you've gotten to the point that you're like excessively thirsty all the time, you're dehydrated. So we shouldn't be like excessively thirsty. So that is one of my big tips, and some things that you can do to kind of help you stay accountable to that. Another one of my biggest tips, and this is my number one tip for optimal health and optimal fertility, because it helps you balance your hormones. And we know that in order to get pregnant, we need to have a healthy menstrual cycle. We need to ovulate. All of those mean that we need to have balanced hormones. So the next one is all about learning how to stabilize and balance your blood sugar. Is this something that you are familiar with? I'm curious, Ella.
yeah,
Yes.
I know about
Make
it. I recently, because I'm doing this event, like whenever I'm working this hard, I always end up going to sugar and just eating a lot of like chocolate. And that's why I keep mentioning chocolate because it's on my
Yes.
mind. I'm just like, chocolate, chocolate. I want to eat some more chocolate. It's an addiction. Sugar is so addictive. But yeah, it's definitely something that I know about and have issues with.
Yeah. Well, let me help. I'm going to give you some strategies for balancing your blood sugar and what that actually means. So, one of the best tips or one of the best things that you can do to start balancing your blood sugar throughout the day is making sure that you're eating like within 30 to 60 minutes of waking up. Because if you think about it, when you wake up in the morning, you're completely fasted, right? Because you haven't eaten throughout the night and you're dehydrated. So your blood sugar is in the tank, right? It's low because we haven't eaten for a while, and you're dehydrated because you've been sleeping for most of the night. You wake up in the morning. What's usually the first thing everybody does? We go to the bathroom, we urinate, we let it all out. And so we need to drink water first thing in the morning, hence my first point, and then eat a fat and protein fueled breakfast, right? So if we think about our food groups, just generally speaking, we have what's called macronutrients like carbs, proteins, and fats, right? Carbohydrates will break down into sugars, right? They're smaller molecules or what's known as glucose, which is sugar. And when we eat carbohydrates, that turns into sugar in our blood. And then we have a hormone called insulin, like a little Pac-Man, is going to come and gobble up all of that sugar, take it out of the blood, and put it into our muscles, into our brain, put it where it needs to go. If we have excess amount of sugar because we're eating too many carbohydrates, then the insulin is going to take what it needs, and then it's going to then put it to our muscles, to our brain, and then it's going to store the excess glucose. And that storage eventually can turn into fat if you have too much over time. So the best tip would be to eat a fat and protein fueled breakfast with some carbohydrates, but not make your whole breakfast all about carbs, meaning a big bowl of oats with bananas, or pancakes, or like a pastry or a muffin, because that's all carbs. And I'm not saying carbs are bad. We need carbs. Carbs are good, but we need to make sure that we're balancing it with fat and protein. So for instance, avocado toast with 2 scrambled eggs or 2 fried eggs on top is a beautiful balanced breakfast, which is giving you your fat, your protein, and your carbs. This is going to start stabilize. So your blood sugar is in the tank in the morning. And then if we eat like bagels or pastries or muffins in the morning, it's going to do this. So the blood sugar, it's going to spike all the way up. And then what happens when it comes up? It's going to crash back down. If we have more fat and protein with those carbs, like the avocado toast with eggs, we can have oatmeal, but maybe we put like almond butter in it. We put some hemp seeds in it. We put some chia seeds in it. And then we top it up with some berries, the lower glycemic fruit. The blood sugar with that more balanced meal is going to start to do this, as opposed to this, right? So when it does this, it's stable. You've got more sustained energy throughout the day. You're going to have less of a dip, which means you're not going to be as crashed and as tired and craving more food, because when it dips, you're going to crave as well. And we want our blood sugar to kind of do this throughout the day, right? It's still going to go up and down. Always it's going to go up and down, but we don't want it to do this throughout the day. So when we can get our blood sugar to do this throughout the day, without getting into too much of a long explanation, that blood sugar, this is insulin, has a very close relationship to another hormone called cortisol. And cortisol is the precursor for all of our reproductive hormones: estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA, pregnenolone. All of those are come after making cortisol. So if we can stabilize our insulin and our cortisol, we are in great shape throughout the day with regards to energy, with regards to mood, with regards to cravings. So such a simple thing of just making sure you're eating breakfast and properly balancing your meals can make such a massive difference in your mood, in your energy, in your cravings, in all of it. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, I was like, I did so well until I ate those pieces of chocolate, because I had eggs and I had cheese. Like it was like fried eggs with a bit of cheese and then like in a wrap. So I got the carbs.
Great. Yeah. You got the fat too from the cheese, and then you had the wrap.
But
yeah. And then, but it's okay. How much chocolate's fine. Chocolate's okay. It's not that chocolate's bad. You should stop eating it. But is it do you have chocolate cravings after every meal? Like, or did you eat the chocolate right after breakfast, or did you wait a while and then you're like, I'm hungry again, and then decided to eat chocolate?
No, it was right after, but it was there, it was there, and I was like, oh, that looks so good. I'll just have a little bit,
But that would have been a great time to you won, because that was actually a great time to eat the chocolate. Right. That's better to eat the chocolate after you had that more substantial meal. So that's okay.
And then I got a little bit of like that refluxy, heartburny thing. So I was like, okay, milk time. Have a bit of milk.
Oh,
I find milk actually soothes it. But
yes.
So more fat. So
yes, protein and fat. Yes. Yeah, so I'm thinking back to the very what if someone says I'm busy and I don't have time,
Yeah,
it's the
you're on the last one.
hydration.
Last
What's
one.
that?
You're on the last one.
Yes.
So it was
Mm,
hydration,
y-
sugar, like insulin,
Yes.
and then what's the third one?
Yes. The third one is so is it has to do with your gut. Have you been let me think which one I want to so there's two, but I just want to think about which one I want to focus on. So let's talk about okay, I know which one. We're going to talk about are you familiar with fermented foods?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. What are some fermented foods that you're
So
familiar with?
yeah, so gosh, what is it called? My husband eats it. It's disgusting.
That was going to be my next question. Do you like it?
No, and I actually get pain in my kidneys when I eat too much fermented food. So I actually stay away from it most of the time, but I know they're really, really good for you. So I kind of need to get my kidney health kind of up there before I can eat more.
So this
Um
is a perfect example. Sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to say this is a perfect example of Ella now taking her own health into consideration, hearing what my general recommendations are, and then figuring out what is going to be conducive for you. So this is a perfect showcase example. So sorry to interrupt, but I just
no,
wanted to mention that.
it's true, and you know, we can get bogged down in the recommendations and what we should eat and
Hmm.
ignore what our body's telling us. So you're right, our body needs to be listened to. So if your body's like like this is pain, don't eat
Hmm.
this, then you need to not. But yeah, he eats like the cabbage.
Sauerkraut?
Yeah, sauerkraut.
Sauerkraut? Yes,
Oh,
yes.
it's so horrible,
Yeah,
don't like it.
yeah.
um I've tried like a little slither and that was okay, but yeah, he'll put like big tablespoons on things and I'm like, yeah.
So good for your tummy. Yes. I know. It's a little bit tart. So let me explain. So the third tip really is to try and eat some fermented foods daily because this is going to help you optimize your gut health. So, if we go back to my story at the beginning as to how I came into this space, before I decided to niche in the fertility space, my nutrition practice focused around gut health. Because when I went back to holistic nutrition school, I learned all about optimal digestion, and I was like, everybody needs to learn about digestion and why gut health is the most important for your overall health. So this is true. I continue to bring this concept into my fertility practice because really, with you could be eating the healthiest diet in the world, but if your digestive system is compromised, you're not going to be reaping any of those benefits. So, your gut is essentially your second brain, as Hippocrates said 2,000 years ago. All disease begins in the gut. So we've got to really focus on our gut. So, um, this is why fermented foods would be really good every day if you can get in some natural fermented foods, such as a couple forkfuls of sauerkraut. You don't need to eat the whole jar, but a couple forkfuls of sauerkraut or kimchi, or maybe a half a cup of kefir or some yogurt. There's also kombucha. Kombucha is a great fermented foods. Pickles, any foods that are naturally fermented will naturally proliferate the healthy probiotics that our gut needs and likes, which will support what's called symbiosis, which is a healthy ratio of the good to bad bacteria inside of the gut. So I'll leave it there because I could talk about gut health for like another 10 hours. But that is my kind of main. There's if you're like, well, how am I going to optimize gut health? What do I do? Eat some fermented foods daily. Your tummy will thank you.
Yeah, I've also I did a bit of research myself because my mom has IBS and she has like all
Mm-hmm.
these food problems with like what's it called? Fructose. Like she has
Yep.
a FODMAP thing. And
I
I
was just about to say she's probably on a FODMAPs diet.
yeah, so I looked up, what's the best way to help the gut? And one of them was to line the gut, to like put something really heavy in there, like some like kale and spinach. And I said to her, like, maybe try that. She's not really into her greens. But
Mhm.
it was that a good thing to recommend for her? Like
Well, I can't remember if the kale and the spinach is on the FODMAPs list because FODMAPs, the FODMAPS, that
Mm,
that words, that's really a big acronym for what's F is fructooligosaccharides. Second, the O is oligosaccharides. D is disaccharides. These are just really long words
yeah.
of sugar molecules that break down based on the certain foods that we're eating. So if
I think
kale and spinach is one that you can't have.
yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's the ones that's like you can have like a cup of it and then don't have any more.
right. I know that there's thresholds for certain ones. So if you're asking if your advice was correct, again, it all kind of depends because kale and spinach, if especially kale, if it's eaten raw and your mom has IBS, um, kale, if eaten raw, is very fibrous and it could be irritating to the gut lining. So a lot of the times, what they'll even say if somebody who has IBS or some sort of compromised digestion is to actually just lightly steam and cook your food because it's less irritating to the gut. So what has your mom hasn't tried it? I was going to say, what was her outcome? But you said she didn't try because she doesn't like her
She
greens.
just she ended up doing green soups and stuff, and she said that made her feel very healthy and like really good. So yeah, but that was
Yeah.
we're in summer now. It's really hot. You don't want to be eating soup in like 40-degree heat. So
Exact. Well, that's it too. Actually, you made a good point there because I'm in Toronto, Canada right now, and it's the middle of winter and it's freezing outside. And the one thing I would say as well is always eat for the seasons, right? Your body is always adapting and changing based on the season that you're in. So in a Canadian winter now, the last thing I ever want to eat is a big bowl of salad or a cold smoothie. Like that is not some. So again, if someone's like, drink this fertility smoothie and it's in the middle of winter for you, that's probably not the best idea. Let's move more towards, you know, chicken broth and chicken soups and homemade stews with a lot of those nourishing ingredients that would be great. But yeah, so for optimizing gut, some fermented foods is good, and another really good food for healing the gut is also bone broth. Chicken bone broth is I don't know about, I think the bone broth craze really came out in the last couple of years, or maybe like 5 years ago. But the broth is really good. You can cook with it. It's got L-glutamine, an amino acid in the broth that is really good for healing the lining of the small intestines. So there's a lot of different things you can do with supplements that you can take and certain foods to stick to, but just generally speaking, some fermented foods and some bone broth are really great too. Pretty easy things that you can usually find to help
yeah.
to help. Hmm.
I know a lot of people tend to not want to take vitamins and supplements. Like I'm kind of one of them. Like I'm a little bit like iffy about supplements. Just because I didn't take them with my first 3 pregnancies, and like anytime I've taken them, I've ended up with like constipation or like all these different
Mm.
issues. So then I try and avoid them. The only one I sort of take is vitamin C.
Hmm.
Like what is there anything you sort of say to anyone who's really averse to like taking them?
Absolutely. So, I would say with supplements, I like to use supplements as kind of like the icing on the cake. That's how I look at supplements. It's not going to be the foundation for your healthy nutrition. That comes with the food. The supplements is the icing on the cake that sometimes needs to be taken based on, again, certain health conditions. If there's a certain nutrition deficiency that we need to really bring that up, then those are necessary. The other component with supplements is, again, if you find you take them and your body is like, nope, we don't like this, and you're having constipation, or I've had clients have headaches, then we need to stop those supplements. A lot of the time, not, I was going to say a lot of the time, sometimes, but that contradicts each other. Sometimes it just also has to do with making sure you're sourcing the vitamin properly, because depending on where you live, depending, certain vitamins, just especially some from like the grocery store aisle, have a lot of fillers and chemicals in them that aren't ideal. So if you have a practitioner or know somebody who gets access to more kind of professional grade supplements, sometimes that can actually make the difference. Generally speaking, I do typically recommend for somebody who's looking to get pregnant to be on a prenatal, just because we want our nutrient stores to be up as high as we can because our baby is going to deplete them anyways. And so, not only during pregnancy, but also postpartum, if you're going to breastfeed, your baby is still taking nutrients from you. So you don't want to go into pregnancy depleted. You want to go in as topped up as you can. And whatever if you're getting, in a prenatal, you're still getting such a small dosage anyways. It's not like you're going to overdose. And if you do, your body is just going to kind of key it out anyways. But again, unless you're taking 15 prenatals a day, I don't think there's ever been a time really where somebody's overdosed on prenatals, but I would say generally speaking, know the source where you're getting it from. Listen to your body if your body is not responding to it well, and if you'd be open to it, I would say a prenatal would be good to start. And then vitamin D is another big one. There's especially depending on where you live in the northern hemisphere, we don't really get much. We get sunshine, but our body is not exposed to it because we're like bundled up in our hats and coats and jackets and all that. So there are certain key nutrients that I do say anybody who's preparing for pregnancy should get tested, like vitamin D, B12, and iron. Those are three really big ones. Get tested, see if you're deficient. If you're deficient in low, then you would top up. You could supplement accordingly. If you're not, then your prenatal can probably just kind of cover the bases, and you should be good to go.
Yeah. No, I'm literally always low in iron whenever I'm pregnant, and you're right, it really depletes you. I think the other thing to just remind any woman who's watching right now, because obviously this is like a pregnancy loss and infertility event as well. So like we do have a lot of women who are pregnant who are having their rainbows, but we also have a lot of women who have just gone through the season of loss. You're depleted too, like that.
Yes.
That's a postnatal, like you've delivered or you're going through a delivery. Those things, you're going to be low on iron, you're going to be low on some of the other key nutrients. So yeah, what you're saying is totally valid for every woman here. You definitely need to make sure those stores are okay. And I tell you feel the tired. If you feel,
you'll feel it
exhausted, I have recently a little bit more so, but I've been eating less meat, I've been eating less of that good stuff, so I've got to get that back into me, because I can feel it, and you really do. It makes a big difference. On a final note, is there anything that you would say to anyone who's really struggling like with their mental health because they're going through this season? Is there anything that you could say, just like you would say to them to kind of help them like with their nutrition and kind of just help them balance back out and be more themselves?
So any last minute, not last minute, but I guess last words of advice is, first thing I would say is just not even with nutrition, but it's just for yourself. Be kind to yourself. And, there's a lot of pressure in this space. And so just, trust your intuitions, trust your gut instincts, trust your gut feelings, and, allow yourself to kind of go through the emotions and the feelings that you're going through. And hopefully you've got a good support system, because I think leaning on those people are so important, especially in a time of grief. But with regards to nutrition, I would say, again, if you could just those I was going to say three, but really two is like the hydration and making sure that you're eating the balanced meals, especially after the loss, is also going to help bounce your body back sooner. Because if you're fasting and if you're not balancing your blood sugar properly, that is going to impact and impede your hormones even more as it's trying to kind of rebalance itself and get your regular menstrual cycle back. So without overwhelming you with too many things, I would say the balancing the blood sugar is always the most number one tip. So if there's anything that you take away from this talk that I've done, let it be the balancing of the blood sugar. And that not only means eating the healthy balanced breakfast when you wake up, but also making sure that you are fueling yourself every 3 to 4 hours with balanced snacks like an apple and nut butter, or some, carrots and hummus, right? Like thinking about how you're getting in those carbs, fat, and protein, in addition to then including eating balanced meals throughout the day. And there's kind of like a myth out there that like if you don't eat before you go to sleep, that's not necessarily true. I eat like 15 minutes before I go to bed, to be honest. So if you're hungry before you go to sleep, go ahead and have some fat and protein as well. Make yourself a little energy ball, or make yourself like a little bit of chocolate milk with some collagen powder, or some chocolate protein powder. It's a really good way to support your body, as you're sleeping throughout the night. Just don't drink too much, because then you'll have to wake up and pee in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I have to do that already. There's not a lot of room in there right now. So,
Yes.
he is just a fact of life.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for those final notes. I think that is really helpful. And hey, guys, you don't have to do it on your own. There's beautiful people like Nora who are here and ready and able to help you. And just like you don't have to go through this lost journey, this infertility and all the things that you're having to deal with right now, you don't have to go through that alone, because we're all here. We've got this massive, amazing community of women. You don't have to do all the diet stuff on your own either. And getting healthy and looking after your body, because I can really connect with anyone who's struggling and feeling like, I just need to get healthy. Like, I'm with you in that. But we don't have to do it on our own. We have amazing people. So
Thank
thank you
you.
so
And
much.
just a just a reminder, like, your health, your health journey is lifelong. It's not something that you like fully accomplish and check the box off now and you're good to go. Like, again, take that pressure off yourself. Be kind to yourself, and know that, the small step that you make today, like drinking more water or deciding to make breakfast in the morning, is a great step. Like, celebrate those little wins, because those little wins will add up. So yeah, I mean, health is a lifelong journey, guys. Just, wait till we reach menopause. I've only heard of the stories.
Yeah. No, I'm scared. I'm scared of that. I'm like, oh, my mom's going through it. And I had a speaker who went through it really young. Like, her body started doing some menopausal things at the age of 16. And I was just like, wow, that's confronting and really hard, and she said, like, she's going to have to go through the process just like every other woman. Like, it's not going to end until the normal time. So she's going through this elongated menopause. I'll link her below for anyone who wants to listen to her, because she's amazing. I can't believe she has to deal with that like every day. But yeah, it's
Right? It's lifelong. It's
yeah,
lifelong.
lifelong. Like, we
There's
do.
always improvements.
But we want to, I get it. Like, we all want control and we want to tick that box off. We want to be like, okay, tell me what I need to do and I'll do it. Give me the boxes, I'll tick them. But it really isn't like that. And we're always going to have slip ups, because someone's going to bring over pizza, or they're going to bring over
That's why
some chocolate.
80/20.
Yeah.
80/20 rule.
I
It's
think
okay.
you have to. And people bring you those gift baskets, like, why did you do that? I'm trying to be healthy,
Just like pawn it off onto the husband or the kids or something.
Oh yeah. No, my husband, we got gifted some chocolates for our anniversary, and he was just like, should we like donate these somewhere so we don't eat them? We ended up eating them with the kids.
Yeah. As long as you're sharing. As long as you're sharing.
He ate like half the packet. I was like, you're the one that doesn't want to
Yeah.
eat them, and you're like eating all of them. But yeah, he gets stuck in there as well.
Yeah, we all do.
I didn't even ask about male health, but I'm sure that's part of.
Oh, yeah, the sperm health, to be honest, what is good for optimizing egg health is just as good for optimizing sperm health. So, I mean, if men can stay hydrated, if men can eat balanced meals, strength training is great for men as well. They can also take for male fertility supplement. There's a lot of the same principles kind of overlap with them, but that's a whole other
Yeah.
interview to do, because we're living in a sperm crisis, and there's a lot of information on how much sperm quality and quantity has been declining over the last like 60 years. So, yeah, check out, actually, I was going to mention, I have a podcast called the Ultimate Pregnancy Prep Podcast,
Yeah, we'll link it.
where yeah, link it below, because I actually have done a couple episodes on sperm health, and I talk about this quite a bit. And there's tons of great information on there on how to optimize fertility. I bring my clients on to talk about their journey to getting pregnant. I bring on experts to talk about their area of expertise. I do my own podcast, so it's a really nice centralized place if you're looking to start trying again, or how to kind of optimize the body to get you ready if if you're going to move forward with trying again. So it's a place, you just take it at your own time. You can listen to the episodes as you wish. There's, it's not going anywhere. So the podcast is another great resource.
Wonderful. Yeah, if you can send me some of the sort of ones you just mentioned, like about the sperm health,
yes,
fertility,
I'll do that.
I'd love to link those specific ones as well as the actual podcast. Yep. Then they can actually listen to the ones we've just discussed. Yeah,
perfect. I will.
And I'll link all your other stuff as well. Is there anything else you wanted to say about what you do, just so we make sure everyone sort of knows about what you
Yeah. So typically what I offer is all I offer right now is a one-on-one private coaching, because that is what I love to do the most, because that is where my clients get the most health transformations, and really we help get them to achieve their desired goal of getting and staying pregnant. But I have what's called the Master Your Cycle to Get Pregnant program, which is a 5-month one-on-one personalized coaching program where I work with you and your partner on optimizing both, your the female health and the men's health. I do thorough blood lab analysis. We do a long, robust intake to really make sure that I understand what's going on with both you and your partner. And then from there, I put together a personalized plan and a protocol that I essentially coach you through over a 5-month period. Because as we were just talking about, making changes to your health and making sure that they're implemented and sustained moving forward. It takes time. These are new habits that have to be built. And as a lot of you might know, going through figuring out what is going to work best for you based on your body and where your health is at can be extremely overwhelming. So think of me as like that fertility coach in your back pocket that you have access to, is going to help advocate for you, who's going to teach you how to advocate for yourself, and give you all the tools and meal plans and recipes and everything you need to optimize fertility. So it's just like this full package deal with me, and that's the service that I offer.
Great. That sounds amazing. And hey guys, if you are past that point of trying and you've decided to not keep going, then maybe this is still a great thing that you can do as well to optimize your health in general. Like, I'm guessing you don't just work with fertility, you can work
I do actually I focus mainly on the fertility piece. I do. Yeah, I do. Like that's my area of expertise. That's what I do. Yeah. But I would say all the stuff that I've talked about in the session today is like, again, optimal health is optimal fertility. So like this is, all the principles and things that I've been sharing today are just as applicable. Even if you don't want to try anymore, right? There's we still, as women, perhaps we all have a menstrual cycle, and so we've got to make sure that we're optimizing that. So principles still do apply.
Well, there you go. Nora is very niche in that fertility space, so she knows exactly what she's talking about with fertility and actually being optimal and actually making that dream happen, that rainbow. I'm sure you have many amazing stories on your podcast, so I'm really excited to start listening even more. So I've only listened to I think a couple, so I'm excited to listen to some more.
Awesome.
So thank you so much for
thank you, Ella, thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Please note that all speakers, including experts and professionals, express information, views, and opinions that should not be used to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any medical conditions. If you have a medical issue, please consult a qualified professional. Speakers voice their own views, opinions, and conclusions, and they may not reflect the views, opinions, and conclusions of other speakers. Ella Rose, The Joy of Sunflowers, and its sponsors may not endorse all or any of the views, opinions, or conclusions expressed.